Hello and welcome to NPC. That's Next Portable Console. It's a show about the games we take with us. My name is Brendon Bigley, and I'm here with Federico Viticci.
Hello, Brendon. Welcome back. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm doing pretty well. I've gotten over a bout of sickness. That's not why I was gone last time. I was gone last time for New York's comic book convention, but happy to be back. I'm also here with, yes, that's right. It's John Voorhees. Hello, John Voorhees.
Hello.
That's his voice.
I'm here. Yeah, that's my voice, and I'm a little under the weather myself. It's that time of year, I guess. I've been suffering through a cold all week.
Yeah. Drink some soup.
Yep.
Eat some soup. What do you do with soup?
I guess you eat soup.
Do you eat soup? No. I guess
you don't drink soup, Tichi. It depends on the soup. I mean, how chunky is your soup?
Exactly. Like, are there chunks of like?
That's right. This week, NPC stands for New Bowl Conversation. We're talking about what you put in a bowl and how you get it out of it.
Oh, my God.
Yes, exactly. I have a soup recommendation. Yesterday, I took Brendon's advice, and I went and bought myself some sweet potato and bacon soup. It was a pureed soup, and it was so good.
When did I tell you to do that?
Just now.
Oh, okay.
Just now. You told me to have soup.
Is this retroactive advice?
No, yes, it's retroactive advice. I took this advice retroactively.
I had COVID brain fog, but I don't remember telling you to get.
Don't you remember, Brendon, texting John about the bacon soup? also, is that really healthy? Like,
probably not, but it was good. Sweet potatoes are healthy.
Sweet potatoes and bacon soup. That's just what the doctor ordered.
Yep. Made me feel better.
Got the
That's
bacon
good.
Soup. Okay.
I'm glad you feel better. You feel better. We have so much to talk about today. I mean, I was gone last week. I had a bunch of things I wanted to bring to the show last episode, which I'm excited to finally talk about. But
okay.
We are now in a state where just about every single day Nintendo announces a thing that is not the Nintendo Switch 2.
Right.
Can I share my conspiracy theory up front?
Please.
Before we get into the announcement. Okay. So it's become a bit of a meme, right? If you go on Reddit, the Nintendo Switch announcement, will it happen in 2024? Will it happen in 2025? Yeah. And people on Reddit are like, I'm Team 24 versus I'm Team 25. Yes.
Right.
But here's the conspiracy theory. And you actually, Brendon, have been saying this for a while. Nintendo, for the past few Nintendo Directs, they've always been saying up front, we will not cover the Nintendo Switch successor in this Nintendo Direct because they need to set the expectations. Now, this week, they have had a bunch of announcements, right? Basically, every single day of the week, they have announced something, whether it's a new game coming to Nintendo Switch or like the Nintendo Music app or, TCG Pocket that's also coming out. Like every day there's been something. What if they are indeed announcing the Nintendo Switch 2 in 2024? I am still secretly Team 24 myself. They didn't do a Nintendo Direct for all of these announcements because otherwise they would have had to say, we will discuss the Nintendo Switch successor, or they would have had to avoid saying that, therefore suggesting that there was going to be the Nintendo Switch successor.
Right.
So instead, they have done a bunch of tweets.
Yes. Every day, a tweet that would have been part of a Nintendo Direct instead of having a Nintendo Direct, so they could just clear the schedule and say, now it's time to just talk about this thing. Yes, I think that it's as fair a conspiracy, I think, as you can come up with. I'm kind of in line with, I don't know if either of you watch or know of Kit and Krista, who used to...
Yes.
They used to work for Nintendo Treehouse and now have their own solo thing that they're doing, which is great. But they posted a video recently in an episode of their show recently that was talking about why they think they won't be announcing the Nintendo Switch this year. And it's basically like the election is coming up. The investor roundtable, I think, is happening in like a week or two, and they don't want to like announce it right before that, and they don't obviously want to announce it right after talking to investors, and then simultaneously you could get one last squeeze of the holiday sales lemon, with the Nintendo Switch if you want to, especially if you're announcing a bunch of new stuff.
Yeah, that's a very Nintendo thing to do, too. I mean, no doubt that they would like to squeeze that lemon a little bit more, get more of those Hyrule editions sold of the light and all that kind of stuff.
But that's been the rationale for like 3 years at this point. I feel like we've been careening towards the Switch 2 for like 3 years, and the entire time everyone's like, well, one last holiday season, why not, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about it this way, the Nintendo Switch was announced 8 years ago. I was 28 when the Nintendo Switch was
You
announced.
were a young guy.
I was a young guy. I'm 36 now.
Oh my god.
Like, just putting things in perspective, it's 8 years since the creepy
It's
Mario.
a long time.
The creepy
The
Mario
technology,
photo.
it's an eternity.
Yeah.
It's unreal. Do you want to talk about some of the stuff that Nintendo did announce?
So you both are playing Pokemon TCG Pocket.
Dude.
Yes.
Boy, am I.
I am not.
I noticed.
Please tell me about it. Please tell me about it.
Why are you not playing it? Is it not available?
1, because I'm scared. 2,
Reasonable.
okay. 2, because I've always felt kind of strange about digital games, about physical cards.
Mm.
Almost like it's an approximation of the real thing.
Yes. Yes.
Which it is.
It is that.
Which it is.
Yeah.
And I don't know. But there's a part of my brain that goes like, well, just get the physical cards, man, instead of getting the app on your phone. But at the same time, it's also an app on my phone. It's very convenient. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
I
very
appreciate
torn.
I appreciate not having cards lying around my house. I mean, that's kind of nice. And the artwork is really nice.
So
They've
is
done
it
an
fun?
excellent
Like,
job.
first of all, is it fun?
It is so fun.
Just it's so much fun. Just the collecting part is fun. I mean, it scratches that collector's itch if you have a collector's itch. The same thing that Amiibo are all about, for instance. I mean, I think that I understand why you're scared, because I think that this would scratch the same itch for you too,
Yes.
even though they're not physical cards.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is it just about collecting, or do you actually battle?
There's battling as well.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's a collection aspect. The way that they pitched it when they first announced it earlier this year, I want to say, is that twice a day you get a notification. It's like you can open a pack of cards. Every pack has 5 cards in it. So you're getting hypothetically 10 cards a day if you're actually checking twice a day.
Okay.
There are ways, obviously, of getting more cards, some of which include a bunch of, kind of bizarre microtransactions and bummer stuff. But other ones are just based on like doing a bunch of like in-game missions. It's like, hey, you added 5 friends and now you have the ability to unlock another booster card, et cetera, et cetera. Stuff like that, which is nice. So very quickly when you start the game, you'll amass a bunch of cards, but then they launch you into battling, and battling is fascinating because you can both just jump into online play and battle other people. Would not recommend to new players that they do that at all. There are there are 2 difficulty modes in versus mode. One of them is beginner, and one of them is trading card game player is the second difficulty mode. In beginner mode, you will go up against Mewtwo over and over and over again. Like, people have already, for some reason, just gotten every great card. The meta, in terms of what is good and what is not, has already formed around a couple of cards like Mewtwo and, weirdly enough, Farfetch'd, which is like one of my favorites.
Farfetch'd? Okay, that's
Farfetch'd is like destroying people online. It's very funny.
Really?
But for some reason, there's no like actual ranking going on in beginner mode. So beginner mode is really just people who started recently, which even includes the people who spent who knows how much money to like get Mewtwo immediately. On the flip side, there's also a solo battle mode, which is just like a bunch of AI battles that increase in difficulty and have a bunch of challenges attached to them.
Okay.
So like, you're going up against somebody who's using an electric type. Make sure that you're using the opposite type that they're weak to, and you'll get a bunch of extra rewards on top of that. It is surprisingly great. The Pokemon trading card game, I never played the actual game itself, but from talking to people who have, it seems like games can last like 30 minutes to an hour, generally speaking. They have really, really pared it down in this case, where the way that you win is by taking out 3 of your opponent's Pokemon, and the energy system is extremely streamlined. So you're getting just 1 mana per turn for those of you who played like a Magic or a Hearthstone or a Marvel Snap or something like that. And you just choose which Pokemon you have in play that you want to attach that mana to. The whole thing is really streamlined in a way that honestly makes me want to, in some ways, check out the original rule set. But I'm so happy with how they've managed to take this game and make it a honestly very Marvel Snappy kind of quick experience. It's very easy to jump in and jump out. So outside of just like the collection aspect being great, I was really surprised to find that the battling system is also great and is something that I think I'm going to probably be spending a lot more time with. It's good.
I haven't gotten to the battling part yet because that's locked initially, which I think is a smart choice because it really gives you the time to start collecting, building your deck, and also just understanding what's available in the game itself.
Yeah.
And I also appreciate the fact that this game can kind of be what you make of it. It doesn't have to be a battling game if you don't want it to be. It can be strictly collecting. You can do, as Brendon said, just, get the cards that come to you for free, or you can go all in and start spending, $10 a month on a subscription and buying gold and doing all this other stuff. But I haven't felt like, while it does give you that dopamine hit for sure. I mean, it is definitely designed to push you towards the microtransactions. If you are not susceptible to that, if you can avoid doing that, it's still fun, and it's not like a time sink then. I mean, you only get a couple of packs a day, and there's only so many things you can accomplish in a day without spending money. And that's good because I've got limited time anyway, so I'm perfectly happy playing kind of the free mode of the game.
Yeah, same here.
Interesting. Yeah. I do like dopamine, so
you do,
dude. So, it's pretty good.
Doesn't everybody?
I'm gonna download it. I don't want to spend any real money though. Like I
just ignore it.
Yeah, that's gonna potentially become like a huge money and time sink. So I'm just gonna play the free game.
Yes. I think that was my main concern, especially knowing the way like Pokemon Go was monetized, and weirdly even like Pokemon Sleep was monetized. Like it feels like the Pokemon Company, when they get into the mobile app space, they just monetize as much as they possibly can, and the monetization here is like not great, but is also easy to avoid if you're a person who doesn't really want to get into that. I'm one of those people. I don't really want to get into that.
Yeah. There's a second, completely different and completely unexpected Nintendo mobile app that was released this week. As we're recording this, it's yesterday. Nintendo Music. So
I couldn't believe this when you sent me this link last night.
I couldn't believe this either, and it's one of those things that instantly made sense for me, and like it made me wonder, like, why didn't this exist before? Nintendo Music, it's basically Nintendo making its own Spotify for their incredible, massive vault of video game soundtracks, only available to Nintendo Switch Online subscribers. So it's adding value to the Nintendo Switch Online subscription. And it basically looks and feels like a hybrid of Spotify and YouTube Music from a UI perspective, from an interaction perspective. It's iPhone only. It's not available on the iPad right now. And the idea is that it's not just Nintendo releasing soundtracks on an exclusive music service, because they could have done that, right? They could have done that with like playlists or albums on Spotify and Apple Music. There's a twist here. Some tracks have an extend functionality. The idea being that there's some songs or some tunes that you really want to use for working or for falling asleep or for relaxation, like whatever it is. There's an extend button that lets you turn, say, for example, the incredible song from Super Mario Odyssey, Jump Up Superstar, which is a 4-minute song. You can listen in an extended mode of 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or 60 minutes, which is what I did last night because I absolutely love Jump Up Superstar. You can extend the songs from Breath of the Wild. You can extend songs from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Like it's the unique twist is this extend functionality that basically turns Nintendo Music into like a background noise of sorts application.
Right. Especially when you're doing things like the Wii soundtracks.
The Wii Shop channel, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that's in there.
One of the most relaxing songs is the download screen. It's actually really very good. You extend that. It'd be perfect for falling asleep to.
And the idea here is that it's sort of reminiscent of Alarmo in a way, in that there's only a handful. There it is. Brendon is showing off Alarmo. Mine is still in a box. I really should get around to finally setting it up. I've been too busy with the iPad mini lately, and I still need to configure my Alarmo. Anyway, the songs, the music is organized by game and by platform. And so right now they have a handful of everything. They have one Game Boy Advance game, which I believe is Fire Emblem. They have a handful of NES, a couple from Super Nintendo, Metroid Prime from GameCube. They have a bunch from the Wii. So they're you know,
they've got Game Boy too. They have like Kirby's Nightmare. I think.
And they have from Nintendo Switch, obviously they have a handful. They have
Kirby's
Breath of the
Nightmare.
Wild.
Sorry, that's really good.
I know. I just realized what I said. Kirby's Nightmare.
I love that.
Kirby's Dreamland.
They have, for example, Breath of the Wild, but they don't have Tears of the Kingdom, just like on Alarmo. So I'm guessing that the idea is that they will keep on adding more games, more platforms over time, as long as you stay subscribed. What do you guys think? Personally, like this went on my home screen immediately. Like it's exactly the sort of thing I wanted, because I was already working by searching on YouTube like lo-fi Breath of the Wild songs.
Yes.
I was already doing it. Now I can do it the official way.
Yeah. My immediate feeling was I already have this and it's YouTube. But I'm happy that Nintendo is choosing to do it. I think it's a little It's the most Nintendo move possible, I think, to release their own app instead of putting this stuff on streaming services, like everyone else has. Especially tying it to Nintendo Switch Online, like as a subscription. I do think it is a really good benefit for Nintendo Online subscribers. I think that's a service that's kind of languishing in some ways. So it's nice to have some kind of added value there, and I think this is an extremely huge added value, especially considering all the features that you were just describing. I'm stoked about it. My main concern really at the end of the day is, are they going to update it at the same pace that they're updating Nintendo Switch Online, where once every 2 months they're we've added one more soundtrack from a Game Boy Advance game, and that's all you get, And
it's Konami Crazy Kart Racers.
Yeah. You're right. It's gonna be that. It's gonna be like Kuru Kuru Kuruwin, the least relaxing thing possible. I don't know
that game,
but it's cool. It's cool, and I appreciate that if you line that and Apple Music and Apple Music Classical up, they look like they're all just Apple apps.
Yeah,
that's fun.
Yeah, they really do.
It's got an icon that works with the iOS 18 dark mode too. So
does it? Nice.
Yeah, it does. It does. That's what I'm using.
This is exactly why iPhone mirroring works on the Mac now. I'm going to have this thing just mirrored on my Mac during the day.
That was my next question. Was how do I get this on the Mac? You're so right. I'm going to do that. Really definitely. All day today.
Yep.
So that's a couple of Nintendo apps from the past week, and still no Nintendo Switch, but there's a Xenoblade Chronicles X coming to Nintendo Switch.
Yes.
That's a huge deal for a very specific group of people.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that game.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe we will get, as we're recording this on Halloween, maybe we will get a Halloween surprise later today from Nintendo. Who knows? Or maybe the Nintendo Switch 2 is in fact not gonna be announced this year, which at this point it's fine. There's games to catch up with anyway.
I'm team 25.
You're team 25.
I think January.
Yeah. At this point. I mean, it could be January. It could also be, they have a February Direct every year. That's their big Direct. Who knows?
Oh, that's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Moving on, there's a couple of things that I want to mention, and I know that you guys are bringing some hardware to the show today.
Yes.
There are now in existence 2 different mods, very similar to the Ashida Wii that I brought to the show a couple of months ago. There's now a PS4 handheld. This is a big deal because it's the first time I've seen anybody successfully trim the motherboard of a PlayStation 4 and fit it in a handheld that is about as chunky as the Ashida Wii that I have. So pretty wild. PS4 Slim, obviously I believe, turned into a handheld. Yes. Go watch the YouTube video. There is also somebody made finally. This is also something that was missing. Ironically, there was an Xbox 360 handheld, but there was nobody ever made an original Xbox handheld. And this is what it is a real motherboard from an original Xbox with a 9-inch 4080p display. It was also upgraded, however, because obviously the original Xbox was that resolution. But this handheld, which is also quite chunky and very reminiscent of the Ashida Wii design, it's got 100-watt USB-C charging and Wi-Fi 6. So imagine an original Xbox from 20 years ago,
Wow.
but it's got Wi-Fi 6. Why? I don't know, but it has it. So
Put both of these together, and I kind of am. It gets me a little bit more excited about these rumors about a new actual PlayStation handheld. There are a lot of rumors that it is like PlayStation 4 powered, and now that we have seen somebody take an actual PS4 and shrink it down into a handheld, it's like, okay, it's probably a thing that could actually happen.
they could do it. They could do it.
I don't know. It's exciting.
What games would it be on it? Like, that's a different question. Like, are you seriously releasing a handheld with old PS4 games?
Right.
Are you gonna make?
I think that's what they do. I don't know.
We'll see. 2025. I think Sony will have something. We'll see. Guys, what is the Anbernic RG Arc XX? Like, what is?
Well, we had to talk about Anbernic, of course.
Of course.
And they didn't release anything this week over the last couple of weeks, but there was a rumor that this RG Arc XX is coming, which is presumably going to have yet another H700 chip in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's kind of a curved form factor. I mean, they've got an Arc already that a model that I've not used before. Have you ever looked at these at all, Brendon?
No, I mean, I've looked at them. I have not used one. They're probably very comfortable. They kind of, they have a kind of, I would say like Sega Genesis controller.
Yeah, I
look
guess
to
that's
them.
about right. Yeah.
Yeah, but just have like a screen slapped in the middle. Basically, they're just taking the H700 and slapping it in every form factor they've ever made.
Right. And this design has been around before, and these were kind of blurry shots that showed up on Reddit somewhere. That's about all we got, I think.
Yeah.
So this will be a Linux version of that, right? That's what
Presumably,
we're thinking. Interesting. I always second guess myself. When you say Genesis, that would be the Mega Drive.
That is the Mega
right?
Drive.
Yes,
it's
the Mega Drive. Yes.
Yeah. Which, but
You know that the iPad always thinks my Markdown files now are Mega Drive games because I have Delta installed.
Oh, it's the MD extension.
It's the MD.
Perfect. This is something that we mentioned in the previous episode. The Ayan Odin Portal Indiegogo campaign has launched. As Brendon predicted, I got one, and so we're waiting for what is coming out in December. I think
so.
They're gonna ship it in December. I'm really excited about this one, guys. I gotta tell you, I even though I am absolutely loving the Odin 2 Mini that I'm using for Dolphin, for streaming. Tonight, I purchased the latest Call of Duty, Black Ops 6 on the PS5.
Oh, wow. Yes.
I'm gonna try and play on the PS5 at my desk later today. But also tonight, I wanna locally stream it with PX Play, which is the new name of PS Play. I think Sony forced the developer.
Oh, they changed it?
Yeah, they changed to PX Play.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to try PX Play on the Odin Mini to stream some Call of Duty.
It's a really good app. It's a really good app.
Yeah.
They're like bitrate settings and stuff, I think, really make all the difference. It's really nice. I'm excited for you to get the Portal. That's going to be fun. I'm worried that I will be susceptible to your enthusiasm about it, but
I ordered one too.
oh no!
Yes.
It's like an outbreak. Oh my god!
It is. I got the black one. I thought this thing is just too nice. And when we talk about the handhelds later on, I'll explain why I got it.
Okay. How's the Mini working for you, Federico?
Oh, I love it.
You're still liking it?
I'm still liking it.
Good.
It's perfect for GameCube emulation, especially when you install widescreen mods and custom textures, all that kind of stuff. I've also been using it for streaming PS5 and Astrobot, and it's been just terrific for that.
Yes.
And just being able to dip in and out of Wind Waker on GameCube with Dolphin on a device that I can so easily throw into my bag. Like lately, I've just whenever I need to, leave the house and get some work done, and also I think I'm gonna have some time to play some games for like 20 minutes or something. I got my messenger bag, my Tom Bean messenger bag. I just throw my 11-inch iPad Pro and the Odin 2 Mini. That's it, and it's perfect.
Dude,
I love
we
it.
have the exact same leave the house setup at this point.
Yeah.
It's like, same exact thing for me. I have like a sling bag that I bring with me.
Yeah.
iPad, Odin Mini.
Yeah, it's great. It's great, and it like honestly makes me like it's so nice, especially for streaming stuff.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me wish for cellular versions of these handhelds, even though like I know that battery consumption would be a whole thing and they would be more expensive. But like
you'd have to have a plan and all that stuff that goes with it.
So once again, it all comes back to the PS Vita. Sony kind of had it right years ago, many years ago, with the cellular version of the PS Vita that was years ahead of its time because obviously game streaming didn't exist. And Sony pitched the cellular Vita as like, oh, you can have a browser, but like I have my phone, dude. I don't need a cellular PS Vita. But now years have passed and the market has changed. And once again, I'm wishing for my Vita-shaped handheld to have a cellular connection. So that'd be nice. There's some movement that I want to mention on the Ryzen Z2 front. This is something that we mentioned before. This is going to be the next generation of the chips that are going to power supposedly the Legion Go 2 next year, or maybe a proper ROG Ally 2 in 2025. Apparently, it seems like the Z2 will probably exist in 3 versions, which seems to give some credibility to the rumor of a future Legion Go coming in 3 versions, a Legion Go Lite, a Legion Go 2, and a Legion Go 2 Pro or something. It seems like the Z2 Extreme will indeed bring Strix Point graphics. So we're looking at RDNA 3.5 graphics coming to handhelds, massive jump in performance, and basically comparable to what AMD is doing with the Ryzen AI HX chips on various devices now. So we're looking, basically to sum up, we're looking at some really nice jumps in terms of performance and battery consumption, which is what we have mentioned on the show before. And there's I'm convinced now that CES will get all of these announcements, the Z2 and the first line of Z2 enabled handhelds. I will be shocked. So. I will be shocked if there's no Legion Go 2 or ROG Ally 2 at CES. At the same time, the folks at OneX, so they make the OneX, what's it called? The OneX portable. I have the OneX GPU, which is an eGPU. They also make the Legion Go like what's it called? The OneX Player, I think.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, the OneX Player. They make it in 2 versions. One it's a small one, and the other is like 11 inches or something. It's massive. They announced the OneXFly F1 Pro. This is interesting because it's a 7-inch OLED, 144 hertz refresh rate handheld that is powered by the Ryzen AI 9 series. This is not the Z2. This is basically what I was just mentioning. It's the new generation of Ryzen AI system on chips in a Windows-based handheld. I want to keep an eye on this one. First of all, because OLED, 144 hertz refresh rate, 7 inches, really compelling and interesting package. Windows-based and Ryzen AI series system on a chip. It's the first of its kind, I believe, right now. Like I don't think so. I don't think there's any other handheld with these specs. Worth keeping an eye on because I think the performance on this one may be. It could be a preview of what to expect in the Z2 Extreme next year. So, and I think the folks at OneX Player, they make really nice hardware. I really like my OneX GPU. There's a new version of the OneX GPU now, the OneX GPU 2, which is not a massive jump from the first gen. But yeah, they make nice hardware. So this one, F1 Pro, I don't know why it's called F1 Pro, but yeah, worth keeping an eye on.
Because it's as fast as an F1 car?
That's-
Is that their
that's-
thought?
I think so.
That was my
It does-
thought. That was my thought. It's like it's an F1 car.
Dude.
I'm glad that they haven't abandoned the X's everywhere. I mean, we need to make sure that everything's extreme too,
Yeah.
fast and
Right.
extreme.
Right.
Yeah.
And lastly, in Ayaneo land, I believe the Pocket Micro shipped, and potentially going to talk about it in a bit. But the Evo and the Pocket DMG, so the Evo would be the super fancy Android-based handheld, and the Pocket DMG is also the super fancy because it's a Game Boy-like vertical handheld. They both got delayed by a couple of weeks. So
Yeah, not by a lot, but
Not by a lot.
There's a lot of talk online on Reddit of people canceling their Ayaneo Evo orders in order to get the Ayaneo portal
the
instead.
combination of the Evo, and having been pre-announced, and then the Retroid Pocket 5 and the Odin portal coming out, it's potentially really problematic, I think, for the Evo. I think between those two, like you have two really compelling and potentially much cheaper options than the Evo. So
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not
we've talked
surprised.
about Ayaneo as like the like luxury version of a handheld manufacturer these days, but even with that, I think they really need to, spruce up their announcement to shipping pipeline in some way, shape, or form, or they're going to keep taking hits like this. Because the Evo was, I think, a great idea and something that a lot of people wanted and felt like the luxury pick for those of for the people out there who like had the money to spend on it. But at this point, it's taken so long that it's just like it doesn't make sense to buy. Like, it is actually an illogical choice, and not only because it's the more expensive one. I always make the Leica comparison. It's not just a Leica to a Fujifilm or something anymore. It's like, what if the Fujifilm was also had the same specs and quality as a Leica?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Switching gears to smartphone gaming, I want to mention the new generation of the Snapdragon 8 systems on a chip. Qualcomm announced the Snapdragon 8 Elite. So they're not doing Snapdragon 8 Gen 4, they're doing Snapdragon 8 Elite. This is based on the Orion architecture that they previously implemented in the Snapdragon, what's it called? Snapdragon X. So basically the new generation of Windows PCs, Windows laptops, based on a Qualcomm architecture. The same Orion CPU architecture with the next generation Adreno graphics is also coming to mobile with the Snapdragon 8 Elite. And the first device that we know is going to have Elite graphics integrated is the ASUS ROG Phone 9, which is launching on November 19th. This is going to be the first device announced with the Snapdragon 8 Elite on board. Again, I think this is going to be the thing at CES. We're gonna see a bunch of phones with Elite graphics on board. And to give you some context, so we're basically looking, when you do the comparison between Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 and Elite, you're basically looking at 40 to 45% increase across the board. So CPU, GPU, ray tracing, I believe, is 35 to 40% improved. So a pretty massive jump with the Orion architecture, which I didn't know. The Orion architecture is actually the result of an acquisition that Qualcomm did a few years ago of Nubia. And if I'm not mistaken, Nubia is the same company behind the Red Magic brand. Of smartphone, for gamers, capital G gamers.
These specs are pretty impressive, given that when you think about things like some of the retro handhelds we've been talking about, the Android ones are running Snapdragon 2, and this 40 to 45% increase you're talking about is in comparison to the Snapdragon 3.
And the 3 and the Gen 3, the Gen 3 is still, I believe, nowhere to be found. Like all of the Android based handhelds are still doing Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, as you mentioned.
Right.
There's no Gen 3. And I mean, we know the reason. It's, you got to wait for costs to come down, if you want to implement the Gen 3. Unless you're Ayaneo.
Yes, I was gonna say this is the solve for Ayaneo. This is exactly how they solve their problem.
Right.
So this is gonna be in phones, high-end phones. and I mean, at some point we will reach the point where I think we mentioned this a while back. There's gonna be diminishing returns with these Android-based chips because like there's only so much overhead you can throw at a PS2 emulator or a GameCube emulator, and you know, Moore's law being what it is, there's not gonna be a fast PS3 or PS4 emulator anytime soon. It is what it is. So for now, while we're like even at the highest end of Android-based emulation, PS2, GameCube, and Wii, or a highest end of Android gaming, which is I don't know, Zenless Zone Zero, probably.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think these chips are more for the native Android gaming, probably.
Yeah.
So for emulation alone, I think we're realistically gonna be on Gen 2 for a while. Because
I think so too.
There's really no need to throw money and resources at Gen 3 or, God forbid, Elite, especially in a world where Nintendo Switch emulation has effectively disappeared. So you really don't need that kind of overhead anymore.
Yeah.
John, what is the ultimate mobile gaming controller, and why is it called this?
Well, because it's from 8-Bit Dough, and if you've ever seen their ultimate controllers, they actually have multiple models for different systems. There's Brendon showing one off.
Yes.
Looks a lot like a Switch Pro controller.
Yeah.
And they've been around for a while. They're very good controllers. What they've done is they've turned that into a telescoping controller now, so you can use it with a mobile phone. That is effectively what it is, because all of the other components are a lot like the existing standard Ultimate controller with Hall effect sticks and triggers and that sort of thing. This particular one right now is Android only. They don't have an iOS model, but it's shipping on November 29th, so just about a month from now.
Yeah, it also has Xbox buttons on it, which is interesting, like Xbox colored buttons.
True.
Which at least is different from the one that I have, which is much more Nintendo Switch Pro controller vibes, flipped A and B, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah,
interesting.
You know, Federico, the other item we've got in here that I think I'm curious what you guys think about is that there are rumors that Apple is working on a separate games app for the iPhone and iPad.
I want to get Brendon's take on this one.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah, it's in our show notes, right under it, the first bullet point, 4 characters long. Why? That's kind of how I feel about it in a lot of ways. What is the larger plan around it? Why would you need to do this? I think, like, on the whole, we could probably all agree that the App Store, or the experience of like sifting through the App Store, is a little bit of a mess, and kind of has been, and the ways in which, you know, things are featured and not, and where ads are placed, et cetera, makes the browsing experience like a little all over the place. It might be easier to break out an entire zone of apps into its own thing, as a way of like cleaning up one side, but I feel like they're already delineated enough in the App Store itself that I really can't think of a reason that they would do this outside of there is a larger investment in gaming coming. Apple Arcade, they're maybe doubling down on in some way, shape, or form, but I kind of don't believe it. The one asterisk I'll put on that: Cyberpunk is coming. Cyberpunk is coming to the Mac, and I feel like that move in particular feels like what is the crisis of our time? You know, what is the Skyrim of this moment? What is the biggest thing we can put on the Mac? And going to CD Projekt and saying, hey, can you port this to Apple Silicon? Because I mean, the amount of money you need to throw at them to get them to do that, I imagine, is probably astronomical. I feel like the decision to do that, in my eyes, does kind of indicate that they really want it to be a place where more people will start to move their games over. But I mean, we've talked about this in the past. I feel like just throwing as much money as possible at AAA games is probably not the solve.
No.
So yeah, what do you guys think about this?
A couple of things I will just say. the only digital storefront that is somewhat pleasant to use in my experience is Steam. I really dislike browsing anything else, whether it's the eShop, the PlayStation Store, the Xbox Store, the App Store, the Google Play Store. Like Steam is the only somewhat decent one in my opinion because of like the recommendations, the features, like because they care. Even though it's a messy place, it's a giant place, but it's all right the way I see it. And the second thing I will say is that I also don't understand why you want to do this, but I had a thought, which is Apple seems to rethink their gaming strategy with the same cadence that they do iPad multitasking. Every couple
couple of years.
Every couple of years, instead of fixing it, they just come up with something new. And so even though I don't understand why, I kind of believe it because it's in how Apple operates. That instead of fixing what was broken, they're just like, hey, we're doing the games app, and now you can find all of your App Store games and Apple Arcade games in a single view or something like that.
Yeah, I look at it and I think that the simplest explanation is probably the right one, which is the App Store is so crowded and they want to just create more room for games to be games and apps to be apps because they really are so different in terms of what the consumer's looking for when they go to the store and in terms of how the developer relationship works too. So I think that that's a big part of it. I don't know that it'll work. I mean, I feel like, I guess the thing about games is Apple's making a ton of money on games compared to just apps. And if you look at any of the statistics on this, it's something like on the order of magnitude of, 2/3 of the profits from the App Store are coming from games. So games are important, even if they are just the kind of typical, Candy Crush mobile coin-based kind of games. Those are making a lot of money for Apple. So having them have a separate app and put a focus on that makes sense from a business standpoint, I think. From a user standpoint, maybe it makes it easier to browse. I just don't think that gaming on the Mac I don't think this is a sign that gaming on the Mac is going to improve, though. And I'm not sure if Cyberpunk is either, only because I think you're going to need a $3,000 or $4,000 computer to play that game adequately on a Mac. But maybe we'll see.
We'll see. I just to plus one your initial idea, I wonder if this gets back to a thing that I talked about a while ago on the show, which is, does separating games from the rest of the App Store enable them to have an entire new rule set in terms of how developers are submitting their apps, what kinds of guidelines they need to follow, et cetera, which then allows them to do what I had hoped they would do, which is like enable the game porting toolkit in some way, shape, or form, so developers can submit their apps.
That's an interesting take. Yeah,
and this new gaming App Store, quote unquote, will actually just like contain all of the tools for the game porting toolkit that will translate those games into Apple Silicon native games.
I could see Apple doing I could see Apple saying, "Oh, there's going to be an App Store and there's going to be a game store, and on the game store you can find you can find Apple Arcade, you can find your emulators, or you can find you can find your other traditional games." I could see the game porting toolkit sort of becoming more of a thing, like by version 3, game porting toolkit 3 next year on a game store. I could also see Apple somehow come up with a new subscription tier. Somehow, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know how or why, but I could see Apple saying, "Well, there's also Apple. There's now Apple Game Plus or something." And you pay.
It's kind of a continuation of the breakup of iTunes when you think about it. I mean, back in the day, iTunes was just like overstuffed with everything from books and podcasts and music to to apps and games. So it's just pulling this stuff apart slowly but surely as each branch of the tree grows.
Yeah, interesting.
So, we'll see. Meanwhile, Netflix laid off a whole bunch of people.
AAA studio
for the
that they had bought.
Gaming division, which is unfortunate and continuously sad trend of hundreds of layoffs every week. But it's just a really unfortunate situation. And well, we had high hopes for Netflix in gaming. Now we don't know what's going to happen, and obviously we wish the best of luck to all those people and everybody else who, sadly, every week finds themselves without a job in this industry. We have some topics. That was just the news recap. We do have some topics, and I'll leave it up to you two because now you two, John and Brendon, are bringing the topics to this week's show.
We are. And you know what? I have a new handheld to show off. I'm going to hold it up for the people watching on YouTube.
There it is.
There it is, the Ayaneo Pocket Micro. All right.
Man,
Do you have
that's
Daiji Show running on there?
I do.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is exactly what it is. And there's the Game Boy Advance splash screen.
Yes.
So, this was what I love about this device is that it was so easy to set up. It's Android, so having come from already owning the Odin 2, I was able to just, start up Android, log into my Google accounts, and then very quickly re-download all the emulators I already had on the Odin, then bring over my games, copy them over, and I was up and running. So it's what we've talked about a few times on the show before, is that Android just makes it so easy to get into emulation. And then, I got Daiji Show on here too and started getting that all set up. And it just took me, a couple of hours while I was watching TV one night, setting this thing up. And for me, what these handhelds have become, the retro handhelds, is I'm kind of gravitating towards form factors and screen quality. And in combination with Android, I think Android just makes life easier. I love tinkering with the Linux-based systems, but Android just is hard to beat in terms of the ease of use. And then this screen on this device is a perfect 4X for the Game Boy Advance, which is kind of right. So it's perfect 4X. So it just looks absolutely gorgeous. I mean, there is detail in playing like Minish Cap, for instance, that I don't think I've ever really appreciated in any other handheld. It just looks so good, and it's a really bright, vibrant screen. I had this connected with my AirPods Pro last night. Music, the combination of the music and the great screen was just amazing. And the controls are good. I mean, you would expect that from a device that's kind of at a premium price. Yeah. The thumbsticks aren't ideal, but most of the games I've been playing and don't use thumbsticks anyway.
Can you show off how thick it is again?
Yeah, so there it is. Now, here, let me compare it to, here's the Anbernic, which is the 2.8-inch screen, okay? And here's the...
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And if you look at them, they're similar size.
Yeah.
They're not really, this is a little thick and chunky, but it's not as thick and chunky as I thought it would be. I just started up a game. Hopefully I didn't pick that up too much. But yeah, it's not a whole lot bigger, and it's actually very comfortable in the hand, even though it's very squared off on the corners. And I absolutely love it. I mean, it's a great little device. And I think where I'm kind of heading with this is I'm trying to find the best small horizontal handheld, the best small vertical handheld, and then the third category is the best all-around big screen handheld, which is why I ordered a Portal, because I want that for I'm at home, I'm sitting on the couch. It's not the one that I throw in my bag, but I want something that's still relatively small, but has that incredibly bright, vibrant screen like this one does, with a great 4X screen that allows me to really see stuff. Even though it's a small screen, I can still see stuff in a way that you wouldn't on a similar size screen that had a lower resolution.
Wow.
That's really nice looking.
Yeah, it looks really
good. You gotta hand it to Ayaneo. We make fun of them sometimes, but it looks nice.
It really does. And, it's running Android 13. It's just very easy to use from that standpoint and set up. And yeah, it's very familiar. It's just like having the Odin, but in a different form factor.
Nice.
So do you think, say you were traveling next week?
Yeah.
Do you think that would be the thing that comes with you over everything else that you have?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's right about the right size. I'd love to get a little case for it, just so that the thumbsticks don't get knocked around or something like that. But otherwise, I mean, the thing is metal. It's pretty chunky. It's pretty hefty in the hand. It's not like super lightweight plastic like the Anbernic devices.
Yeah.
But it's still small enough that despite that, it's not going to add a lot of weight to your bag either.
Mm. Can you remind myself and the good people out there listening what the price is on that?
What the price is?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think it's like 200 and something. Let's see. I'm going to look it up while we talk here because I don't even remember. I ordered it so long ago.
I think it was below 300 for sure.
Oh, it is below 300. It's 200 and something.
Oh, yeah.
But
look, that's expensive, obviously, for what you're getting, but it's not as exorbitantly expensive as I was expecting from Ayaneo.
Right.
Okay. I mean, look, this is definitely a device that I always have my eye on. And hearing you talk about it and seeing some of the reviews when it first came out, it's like it seems like a really good option for a lot of people. I think where it starts to bump up against like what you're getting for the value, et cetera, is mostly like the upper end of that is like, okay, what else could you be getting for $200?
Mm-hmm.
You know, i.e. like a Retroid device that would be able to play stuff like GameCube a little more handily. But I don't know, for the people out there who just want like the best possible experience for playing everything, you know, under that GameCube generation.
Yeah.
Seems like this is a
all right. So
nice
I just
pick.
looked it up, and the retail price for the 128 gigabyte version, which is what I got, is $220.
$220.
And then there's a 250 model and a 280 model. They have both of which have a little bit more RAM and more storage. But for the games that I'm playing, I did not need anything beyond 128 of storage and 6 gigabytes of memory.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Does it have an SD card slot?
It does.
Oh, okay.
It does.
Yeah.
And I actually put my games on there and did that. So right now it's mostly dedicated to the Game Boy lineup, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I've also got some Super Nintendo games on here. I'm planning on trying some N64 games too, but for now it's really it's the sweet spot for this device really is on the Game Boy line, which, you know, you're right, Brendon. I think for Game Boy emulation, that makes this a very expensive device. But if that's kind of the lineup of games that you're into, which I happen to be, it really is kind of one of the best ways you could possibly play those games, I think.
Right. Yeah. Like you could pick up, you know, a Miyu Mini Plus or something for $70-$80 and play all that stuff and have a pretty good time with it. But if that's like the thing you care about the most, I can understand why you would be interested in the Pocket Neo.
Yeah.
Right.
That's very cool. Should I talk about my handhelds?
Yes, what you got?
You should. You have
right.
more than one, I think.
I have two.
Multiple handhelds? Okay.
I have two handhelds to talk about. They are related in a major way. So I should note that for the other podcast I do, Into the Aether, every year for our season premieres, we've done a breakdown of an entire console's life cycle. You know, we will pick a console, find the best like 100 to 200 video games for it, play through all of them over the course of a year, and see where we net out by the end of it, and just, you know, how do we feel about the console as a whole. A couple of years ago, we did the Nintendo DS, and when we did the Nintendo DS, I bought my dream Nintendo DS, which was the DSi in matte black. It was a device I'd always wanted. When I grew up, I just had the like standard tanky silver Nintendo DS and never upgraded it until the 3DS came out. I just
never got the DS Lite?
Nope.
Oh.
Just used that same tanky one the whole time.
Wow.
And it worked fine the whole time, which was nice.
Sure.
I did drop it down the stairs once, like on like concrete stairs, and it survived the fall, which was amazing. But I always wanted the DSi. Something about the cameras, something about the look of it. I have just always thought, and I still feel this way, that it is the most beautiful thing Nintendo has ever made from a design perspective. And when we were done with that episode, we did a giveaway that was like, if you listen to this entire 4.5-hour episode or whatever, and you made it to the end, we will give away a Nintendo DS to a listener. I will set it up for them, et cetera, et cetera. And I gave away my DSi, which I immediately regretted. As soon as I shipped it, I was like, I shouldn't have done this. We should have bought a new one or something for somebody. But instead, I gave away my DSi. So I've been on the hunt for a Nintendo DSi for like actually years ever since doing that. And I finally. I checked eBay at the right time. I found complete in box.
Oh my god!
For $80, a Nintendo DSi. that was like
For $80?
$80. The box is a little banged up. It's a little ripped up. But it had everything in here. It had extra styluses. It had the charger. It has all of the reading material. It had everything in here, along with a completely perfect black.
Oh my god.
DSi.
Oh, that looks amazing.
With almost,
that looks great.
I mean, no scuffs or scratches. Even the one that I got when I did that episode was more scratched up than this one is. So I got this mainly because I've been playing a lot of DS stuff again on my Odin Mini. And just flipping back and forth between the screens works, but it really does, when you're using one screen and trying to emulate the DS, it does limit, I think, the experience that you can have in terms of what games you can play.
What are you playing right now?
So yeah, right now one of the ones that I'm playing is one that we've talked about a bunch, which is Somabringer, which is
how are you playing it with the patch?
Well, Federico.
Oh no, this is gonna be a whole rabbit hole for me.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, I won't reach into my bag and pull out the stuff. But the thing about the Nintendo DSi that's really fabulous is that you can take a game, throw it in to the slot, and then if you get the right firmware and community hacks on here, you can just obviously rip the game off of the card. So I ordered Somabringer from Japan, got it here, put it in the DS, ripped it, put it on my computer, patched it into English, and then this is the reason to get a DSi over all the other DSs. It just has an SD card slot, so you can throw an SD card in and then boot your games off an SD card slot instead. So now I'm playing the English version of Somabringer on the DSi on original hardware.
You just created a whole project for this winter for Federico.
My God.
Dude, it is an extremely solid experience. I'm having a great time with it. The process of actually, they call it hacking. It's not really hacking, but the process of hacking your DSi is so easy. There are some great websites.
Really?
One website in particular, I think it's just called dsi.hacks.net or something. That is maybe a 30-minute process total if you have all the equipment kind of lined up already. But this is pretty much my dream DS, and for any experiences in which I need to play a DS game, this will probably be the way I do it going forward.
I have that exact same DSi.
Do you?
Now I have a project too. Yeah, I do. I have that black one.
I have the DSi in white. I've always been.
The white one is also very nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let me ask you though.
Sure.
Is the hardware the only reason why you be playing a DS game on a DS instead of compatibility mode on a 3DS?
Yeah, there are a couple reasons. The 3DS also just has some weird scaling stuff when you're playing DS games on there.
True.
Which really, when I'm playing the DS or the 3DS, I'm just playing 3DS games on there. Even honestly, I even like emulating other stuff. So once you have hacked your DS, you can take your Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games and Super Nintendo games. You can put them on here as well. I just find that to be a more enjoyable experience on the DSi than the 3DS. And I truly think, I really, hand to God, feel like it really just comes down to, I like the hardware of the DSi more than I like the hardware of the 3DS. I like my 3DS a lot. I'm very proud of it. I got a white non-XL new 3DS. I imported faceplates from Japan to customize it. I love that thing a lot, and I hacked that as well, and it's great. But even still, I think that this is just an incredibly cool thing that I like taking with me. And the most absurd thing that I'm doing with it too is taking pictures with it every once in a while as well.
I was going to ask you if you've been doing that.
Are you really doing? Oh my God.
Yeah, because it has the front camera and it also has an inside camera. But man, what a dream it is. I'm very happy with it. So that's one of the two things I got.
Where's my DSi though? Is that at my mom's place? Or is it downstairs in storage? Anyway, one of the two things.
Time to find out.
What's the second thing?
So, talking about dream devices, the matte black DSi is one that I wanted for a long time, owned, gave away, got back. But there's one other device from that time period that I'd always wanted and never picked up. Two technically, but one in particular. And I thought it was finally time to pick up a PSP, and I got an incredible modded transparent PSP from Etsy.
Nice.
Wow.
Which is the first time I've ever owned a PSP and used a PSP, which is an interesting experience. So, as we said in the very first episode of this show, we're all Vita people. We've all played the PS Vita. I've played PSP games on the PS Vita. I've had an enjoyable time doing that. But I've always just been so curious about the original hardware for this thing. Not that this is original anymore now that somebody's swapped out the faceplates to make it transparent. But having a physical PSP, which is modded as well, I should mention. So my whole PSP library is on here, which is great. But having a modded PSP and using this user interface and just kind of bringing it with me for like a week and a half, which is as long as I've had it, has been an unbelievably cool experience. I think, and I'm interested in your take on this, Federico, somebody who used the PSP a lot growing up.
Yeah.
But I think that if I had this when I was growing up, I would be a totally different person. Like, I think there's something about this device in particular that using feels so exhilarating all the time. It's like even just the little UI touches. It's the fact that it has like a sleep and resume built into it, which I was so surprised to find while I was like on the subway to Comic-Con and in the middle of playing Brave Story New Traveler, an RPG. And I was like in the middle of a cutscene. I was like, oh no, what do I do? And I just tried on a whim to like flick the power button to see what would happen. And it just seamlessly went to sleep. Things like that, things like, and this is wild, but like loading music onto it and trying to use it as an MP3 player like my friends did in the early 2000s, knowing that I could get movies on here. It's also worth mentioning that if you're buying a PSP from some of these like more respectable modders who exist on the internet, they will also circumvent the battery problems that a lot of these have. So this has a new battery plugged into it, which is wonderful, which means that it won't just like expand and blow up in my pocket. Man, the PSP rocks. Like, I am so stoked about the PSP. And similar to the Nintendo DS, like, you know, again, I could be playing this stuff on the Vita. I could be playing this stuff on the Odin Mini, but I just wanted to try playing it on original hardware. And it's a great experience. It's a really great experience.
And let me tell you, like, very few things shaped me in life as someone who's interested in tech as much as the PSP did. Like, owning, anticipating, buying, and using and sharing the PSP with my friends when it came out in high school. It was for me, like a deeply transformative experience. Like the idea of I'm playing at the time, like almost console quality games on a handheld. I can have GTA, what was it? Liberty City Stories or Vice City Stories. Playing those first games on the PSP and showing it off and using the UMD, using it almost as, and this was the thing at the time, like so many video game magazines were pushing it. Like, it's not just a console, it's also like a modern take on the Sony Walkman. And I did that. I did all of that. I put my movies on it. I put my music on it. I spent hours in my bedroom as an angsty teenager listening to emo music via my PSP. Like, that was
great.
Years of my life living that kind of lifestyle. And that's not to mention when I got into the whole PSP hacking scene. Using my time when I was in high school, we had this hour on a weekly basis that was taking place in what they used to call the computer room. And that's where I think I mentioned this before, we were doing like classes to teach you how to use Microsoft Office or like, and that was like 2004, 2005 or something. And I knew how to use all of that. So I was just pretending to use the computer. What I was doing, in fact, was going to the website pspupdates.org, which is no longer in existence, to learn everything about modding the PSP. And I started doing that. And I started modding the PSP for my friends and other people in school. And so modding the PSP to put emulators on it. The only time in my life that I finished Super Metroid was by using SNES NEX, the emulator, SNES 9X, sorry, on the PSP. I finished Super Metroid. I remember I was walking in the center of Viterbo with my mom playing Super Metroid on the PSP. That's when I finished it.
Amazing.
The PSP was like, in many ways, it sort of created that sense of tinkering, and like that it created that combination actually of tinkering but also using beautiful high-end hardware that eventually would become my passion for Apple devices and tinkering with those Apple devices.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that resonates with me so much now using this. I think if I had had this when I was younger, I would have gone down that exact same rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And it's not like I didn't with other devices. Like I was, hacking the Wii back in the day.
Nice.
That was like kind of my first foray into like taking a piece of video game hardware and like messing with it. But now that I have this PSP, I just keep thinking about all the things that I can do with it. And I imagine when you are, again, an angsty teen in high school, having that kind of experience, imagining.
I had
gotta be.
when I modded it, I'm pretty sure at one point I had a whole custom theme, a whole like My Chemical Romance custom theme for my PSP.
Nice.
That was cool. That was cool. I remember being so angry that the proprietary memory format, I believe the PSP used the Memory Stick Duo.
It sure does.
Yep.
And that was before, at some point, someone came up with like a Memory Stick Duo adapter so that you can put in a micro SD card. Otherwise, yeah, exactly. Otherwise, at the time, I had to buy the super expensive proprietary...
They were incredibly expensive.
Incredibly expensive proprietary storage card for the PSP. Yeah, man, what a time. What a time.
Yeah, it really makes me sad that Sony's not doing
Exactly.
hardware anymore.
Exactly, because at the time, more so I would say with the PSP than the Vita, actually. They had for a moment, for like those couple of years, Sony had that fire when it really seemed possible that they could take on Nintendo and the Game Boy and the DS. For a moment in time, it truly felt possible. And it was, as Brendon said, it was exhilarating to watch.
I feel like they dictated the aesthetics of the early 2000s in some ways also. Like when I think of early 2000s design and fashion and just like what do I consider the aesthetics of those couple of years, I do consider like the PSP to be a piece of that in a major way. This kind of like Millennium Utopia design. I think that permeated everything. Even when you launch games on the PSP and gradients pop out of nowhere and it plays a little jingle. It's like it's like it's so beautiful in a way that the early 2000s were, not that the early 2000s as a time period were beautiful, but I mean like aesthetically, some of the best design from the early 2000s I think is really on display on the PSP. And also, truly, just having it be transparent, I feel like it harkens back to that in a major way, which is lovely. What I'm left with now, because I have this big transparent UMD slot in the back, is what do I put there? And right now, the thing that I have my eye on is a UMD. It's $18 to go buy on the internet. It's a UMD of Ridley Scott's Alien, which I think would be the funniest thing to just have in the back.
That would be pretty cool.
I think I mentioned this before, the only UMD for a movie that I have, because I literally just a couple of weeks ago, I finished digitizing my PSP game library. But the only movie that I have as a UMD that I watched, the entire movie on my PSP, is Eminem's 8 Mile movie.
8 Mile,
and it was a big deal at the time that 8 Mile was available via UMD. I believe, was the Peter Jackson King Kong movie available as a UMD?
I would bet it was.
Probably
was.
It was that
Seems
era.
like the right.
Yeah, that was, I think 2004 that movie came out. So I feel like
I think it was.
That's like,
it's like there were like
bullseye.
a handful of movies that were like coming out on UMD, and that of course then the standard sort of just withered and died because like nobody was watching movies on UMD.
Yeah.
But for a moment, it seemed possible. And
yes, you can get a UMD of King Kong.
See,
for $13 United States dollars.
I remember those movies. Yeah. Man, what you have unlocked a memory today, Brendon.
Yeah.
Those are great. Those are great handhelds. I'm excited that you got both of those. I mean, there's some amazing stuff being done with PSPs with the modding community. I mean, I see them on threads all the time, and they're beautiful. Some of the mods.
There's you can get mods with a new IPS display, which is something that I did a few months ago. I have a new white PSP that I don't think I ever brought to the show. I got a new one that I still have to set up actually, but it's got a new IPS display. There's some people. This is not what I have, but there's other people doing USB-C mods for the PSP, which is interesting. Yeah. People doing all kinds of things with the PSP, which is something that, Etsy can be a dangerous place.
Very dangerous.
If you have a credit card.
I'm interested to see if this is the end of the road for me with the PSP or if it's just the beginning, which is also a possibility. Because there are some modders out there. Like I think all of us follow Melty Mods.
Yeah,
probably.
Yes, those are amazing.
Whoever is behind that account, what they're doing with PSPs is amazing, and their work sells out pretty much immediately. They do, I think, like bi-weekly
It's almost
drops.
instant.
In another life, I should have been a console modder with a shop on Etsy. Like, I think it seems like a lucrative market and also like really fun to mod these consoles.
Potentially. I think some of I've been following very closely some of like the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance modders, and I think that their margins are actually pretty thin because there's so many of them. I think maybe PSP would be better because I don't think there are quite as many people in that community, but the Nintendo ones, it's a pretty crowded space now.
Yeah. Well, that was a couple of handhelds, Brendon, that I was not expecting.
Yeah, that's quite the reveal.
Yeah,
quite
look,
the reveal.
I think on a higher level, when thinking about this show in particular, we're obviously talking about all of the latest, greatest portable consoles. And I think there's something to be said about taking the stuff from the past and modernizing it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I agree.
In some cases, in a lot of cases, the best place to play a game is not by emulating it, but is by playing it on the original hardware if you possibly can. But you know, as those devices continue to age and wither away, it pushes more people to emulation. Whereas if you can get, a PSP that looks rad and has an IPS display and USB-C charging or whatever, why not play it there?
Yep, I agree. I mean, and for me, I think more often than not, it's the screen that ends up being the limiting factor, and why hardware modding, I think, is so essential because those screens just aren't what they are. What you can get today, even on the low end, is better than what you could get on 20-year-old hardware.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about does it.
I think it does. I think we should wrap it up right there.
All right,
everybody. Well, I'm going to say goodbye for us all. You can find Mr. Brendon Bigley over at wavelengths.online. Say goodbye, Brendon.
Goodbye, Brendon.
All right. People can find Brendon on social media as Brendon Bigley. Federico Viticci, you need to say goodbye too.
Goodbye, Brendon. I was going to say goodbye, Brendon.
Bye, everybody.
Federico and I are both on MacStories.net. Federico is at Viticci, pretty much anywhere you can find him. And I'm at John Voorhees, pretty much anywhere you can find me. And I will say goodbye too. Goodbye, Brendon.
Bye, John.
Bye. Talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.